Safe Boating Week and throughout the entire boating season, we remind boaters to practice safe boating and responsible boating. Always wear your life jacket and be alert while on the water. By practicing these simple steps, you can save your life as well as the lives of the people boating with you. As part of today's special celebration, we'll be hearing from several guest speakers regarding the importance of boating safety and their own personal commitment to wearing a life jacket every time they're on the water. You can then demonstrate your own personal commitment to wearing a life jacket by completing a Wear It Pennsylvania pledge card, which is available on our booth behind us, and it's also available on our website at wearitpa.com. But first, we have a few words from some guest speakers. Our first guest today is Melissa Nepper on behalf of Senator Richard Alloway, who is the chair of the Senate Game and Fisheries Committee. Melissa?
On behalf of National Safe Boating Week in Pennsylvania, on behalf of the Senate, we in the Senate support the goals of Wear It Pennsylvania and recognize this week as National Safe Boating Week in Pennsylvania.
I recognize some of my House colleagues who are here today. Chairman Jerry Stern of the House Tourism Committee is with us. I see Representative Cheryl Delosier back there. Representative Keith Gillespie is also around. I saw him earlier. From the House of Representatives, which also recognizes Safe Boating Week in the Commonwealth. And one thing that I thought was very interesting to note is that nearly 80% of the boating fatalities in Pennsylvania occur when people are not wearing life jackets at the time of the incident. That statistic, I think, speaks for itself, and we need to make people more aware of the fact that these life jackets are easy to wear, they're lightweight, the new technology makes them very easy and not obstructive when you're out enjoying the boating activities across our great Commonwealth. So I'm going to present to you the citation, which is sponsored by myself, co-chair of the committee, Ed Stayback, and a bipartisan group, a large group of members from the House of Representatives. Thank you very much.
Next on our agenda is Representative Jerry Stern, who's the chair of the Tourism and Recreational Development Committee.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today, and it's also a pleasure to be a co-sponsor of the House citation that was presented by Chairman Evans. You know, boating and fishing activities, and especially boating activities, are such an important part of Pennsylvania tourism when we think about it. And we think about the money that is spent in Pennsylvania related to tourism activities. Much of it is attributed to boating and fishing activities. Visitors to Pennsylvania spend almost $5.7 billion on all forms of recreation, with fishing and boating making up a significant portion of that.
Director of the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. John?
What I'd like to do is share with you a story about an event that happened in Pennsylvania in April, referenced by Representative Evans and others. In request that the Commission issue them a life safety award. The boater involved in this incident also sent the Commission a handwritten note to express his gratitude to the rescuers. I'd like to read you his thank you note. He said, on April 19th around 1 o'clock, my canoe turned over. It happened so fast. These kinds of events usually do. I had a fish on one pole, and the other pole, the bottom caught the bottom of the lake. And the wind was pushing me faster than I knew. I tipped the canoe over too far, and the water came over the side so fast. Two things I did right. I had a life jacket on, an inflatable one which worked just as it was supposed to work, and I stayed with the canoe. But the best thing was, two fellow fishermen were good enough to save me. Without their help, who knows what would have happened. The water was very cold. They came as fast as they could, and without their courage, who knows. They were smart and caring. Their concern for my health was a great feeling. It helped to calm me. When they got me out of the water, they gave me some of their clothes to keep me warm. What a warm feeling from these two men. They were the only two boaters on the lake. They got my truck for me, loaded my canoe, tied it down, and turned the heater on. They even offered to drive me home. Thank you. So, as we know, recreational boating has become safer every year. With the advent of life vests like this, it's no excuse if you don't wear a life vest when you go into a boat. Boating accidents are on a decline, fortunately, nationwide. Fortunately, however, about 12 people a year still die in boat accidents in Pennsylvania. And nearly 80% of the victims aren't wearing life vests.
Our next guest is Joellen Litz. who's a Lebanon County Commissioner, and she's here representing the Swatara Creek Watershed Association as well.
Thank you. For 24 years, I've been coordinating along with my board of the Swatara Watershed Association a canoe trip and sojourn for the state of Pennsylvania. You know, I should knock on wood because we've been very fortunate that we work together as a team and we've had no incidents. I'm familiar with the Swatara, and it's some of the milder paddling that you can do. But last year, my colleagues from across the state said, on the way to a conference, why don't we do some whitewater rafting on the Upper Yacht? And I'm like, okay. I had no idea what I was getting into. But I soon learned it was Class 5 rapids and some Class 4 rapids. So there was 4 of us assigned to each of the inflatables, and we had an experienced river guide, and he said, you must do what I tell you to do when I tell you to do it. So I was one of the back, he was the right back, I was the left back, and that meant I had to paddle pretty hard sometimes. And he says, boy, he says, you're pretty good at paddling, and it made me feel good. I said, thank you, sir. But, you know, as we were going through some of these larger rapids, all of a sudden he says, into the center of the boat. So we jumped into the center of the boat. Now, the people in the front, the one lady was a lot smaller than her husband, and he was obviously larger. And what happened was the water flipped her out of the boat. She was gone. Her husband panicked. He stood up straight. Now, when I do a safety briefing for the people that go on our sojourn, I say, guys, your muscles up here, you're top heavy. Ladies have an advantage, it's down here. But he stood straight up tall in this boat, reached down, grabbed her life vest, pulled her up, fell back, and he went out the other side. I'm like, oh my. When he pulled his wife in, she was laying on my legs. She was exhausted because she had been in the water for a little while. And I had to reach back on my left side, and he was reaching up for, there's like a rope on the raft. He was reaching for that, and as he reached there, I grabbed his life vest. And he looked at me straight in the eyes, and it was like this connection, this contact, like, don't let me go. So I hung on, but I couldn't get up because I didn't want to hurt his wife. So our guide jumps across the 2 of us, reaches down, grabs his life vest, falls back on his butt instead of straight back, and was successful in pulling him in. That's my story about how important it was to wear a life vest. Had he had not had those on to grab this, to be able to pull his wife out, to be able to pull him out, for me to hang on to him so that he wouldn't lose the boat, and we were in all these rocks and everything, he stayed with us, and we were able to get him back on board. That's my story. Thank you.
At the Pennsylvania Organization for Watersheds and Rivers, we help local groups, watershed groups like Commissioner Litz's, organize sojourns on their rivers in their local communities. And in doing that, we have to take boating safety very seriously. We do that by requiring all the participants on all of our sojourns across the state to wear life preservers. But that's just the start of the boating safety that we take seriously. I help the local organizers for these trips. This year we have 15 across the state. Put together safety plans where they learn to understand the waterway that they're going to be traveling on, where the hazards may be, and also look at the weather forecast for the time they're going out on the river so that they're prepared for whatever might be coming at them, rain or heat, because all of these things can really lead to a positive or a negative experience out on Pennsylvania's waterways. So I'm here to just share what we do in working with these local groups to get folks like you out on the river. We take boating safety seriously. We've got a squeaky clean record as a result. Our trips have not had any major incidents or accidents, and I think that that's because of all the precautions we take ahead of time to make sure that when we get out on the water, we're ready for whatever comes at us, and we're out there having fun without having to worry about the consequences of not being prepared. Thanks again, and everyone practice safe boating.
Final brief message, and this is on behalf of Mary Gibson, who is the chairwoman of our Boating Advisory Board. She's also manager of Blue Mountain Outfitters us today. However, she sent her message along and asked me to share it because life jackets are an important part of her life, both personally and professionally. In over 20 years of managing the Blue Mountain Outfitters canoe and kayak shop, Mary Gibson has learned that there are two kinds of boaters, floaters and sinkers. And it's not about whether or not you can swim, it's about whether or not you're wearing your life jacket. The key to finding a life jacket that works for you is it's not restrictive and it trips your trigger. Mary still wears the Lola Lotus. This Lola life jacket was named after the owner's chief seamstress, not the song. And it has a lotus lucky flower on the back, which has seen Mary through many nasty rapids, and Mary has a lot of faith in this life jacket.